In September, we see 3 Minute Warning start a feud with Billy and Chuck. Probably their most memorable moment is when they crash the commitment ceremony. Boy, some of this stuff is, a little silly, but
Yeah. It is.
they're in good storylines right away. You know, that they've got, sure, they may not have a traditional, place on the roster, but they're positioned with the general manager and they're in key storylines. And, anytime, even though we may not like the authority figure concept because it's been outdone or overdone rather at this point, when you come in and make a debut attached to a character like that, you're going to be on TV, right?
Right. Exactly. And it was all shock. Howard Stern's the greatest shock jock in the history of radio by far. I don't know who's left. Who's second is another topic for another day. But, it was shock. The 3 Minute Warning was a shock deal. And the irony of it was they started getting over as baby faces because people knew that they're going to see some shit go down. And you can't screw too many things up in the short times that they were out there. They're just so big and mobile, they could make a Samoan drop look like it was absolutely murder. So, that all that was based on shock principle, knee jerk. And luckily we had some talents also in that era that could wrestle really well and do good long matches if necessary. But the show has got to be heavy on talk, heavy on skits, heavy on vignettes, things of that nature. So, that was just a part of the Attitude Era. And quite frankly, those guys are a big part of the Attitude Era. We saw that Eki was going to be a star, without a doubt. He just had the attitude, and he had the makeup, physical and mental makeup. Sometimes I love Rosie, God bless his soul. He was almost too nice a guy to be a heel. He just didn't have that mean streak. His brother, Roman, has got a mean streak. Roman did play defensive tackle in college at Georgia Tech. He understands that whole team concept and that structured environment that it takes to be a D1 football player. But Rosie came basically. He was always for him was always going to be wrestling. And so, but we knew Eki was going to be special. Just you always worry about guys that are that big, Conrad. Just keeping them motivated and keeping them aware of the nutrition, so they don't eat themselves like William Perry did back in the day, out of a job.
Well, what's interesting to me is, and we're not done talking about 3 Minute Warning, but the team lasts less than a year. But what an impression they made. I mean, I feel like everybody I know knows this team, and that's not something you usually talk. I mean, usually when you're talking about a team like this, it's a team that had a run for years, not a team that made it less than 1 year, but boy, they really knew how to make an impact. And, they were, the stuff they were written in, they did a great job with. And, we talked about a little bit, they're going to have a bit of a feud with Chuck and Billy here. Eventually Rico becomes the manager for 3 Minute Warning. And I don't know that I necessarily needed that creative. I thought Rico did a much better pair with Chuck and Billy. It does seem a little random, but maybe that's why it worked. Maybe that's why Vince liked it. What'd you think of Rico being with 3 Minute Warning?
I thought he was overbooked. Rico's I think he's still, he was a Las Vegas cop. I saw him, pardon me, out there, maybe the last cauliflower club I attended or something. A sweetheart of a guy. But you earmark this team that has this apparently unlimited potential with a manager that isn't going to get over. And so all of a sudden they're the way the opportunity for growth is limited. So sometimes that happens. And it's the same thing as we were talking about earlier. Armando did a good job with Umaga, the Samoan bulldozer, he called him. But Armando wasn't those other three guys I used as illustrations, Heyman, and Cornette. If you put Eki with those guys, any of those guys, if you're able to, then it's a whole different perception of what people would think about Umaga. So that's just a thought. It sounds like I'm denigrating Armando, and I'm not. He was a good company guy, loyal. He reliable. Big trait for me. You got to be reliable. You can't play on the team, and he was that for sure. So, but we knew Eki was going to be. You just can't find guys like that, Conrad. That's like seeing Leon White for the first time. Vader. He's athletic as hell. He was doing moonsaults. I don't know why. Babyface spot, but he was a monster heel that could do all that shit. And he wanted everybody to know he could do all that stuff. But he had great feet, great athleticism. He'd get up, he'd get down, and especially in the early days, before his body started breaking down on him, because he got too heavy. He got that 400-pound mark, and man, you're flirting with disaster with that. So, but Eki was always going to be special. You just can't find somebody with his traits and his size, his look. They don't grow on trees.
He does get a little bit of heat. Jamal gains a reputation for being reckless in the ring, including several performers who were complaining, maybe most notably the October 14th situation when Pat Patterson suffers a separated shoulder. The rumor and innuendo, and Lord knows we get a lot of that in wrestling, says that the WWE decided to punish him and put him on the receiving end of a stink face by his real life brother Rikishi during the Royal Rumble match.
I think that's a load of horse shit.
Of course, that's a little silly, but do you remember there being discussions about, hey, big boy, y'all gotta slow down. Y'all are hurting guys for real out there.
Well, we had that conversation with a lot of guys. You don't think the conversation with the Steiners didn't occur in the WCW because they were so physical and violent?
Of course.
It happens all the time. So they were big, aggressive guys. And because of their size, they could easily hurt you if they weren't extremely careful. And if you you weren't in position to take the bump. So I think that's just bullshit. Taking a stink face that's punishment. It's probably one of the bigger pops of the night.
Exactly.
And guys love to work for the pops and as they should. But no, I think that's just that rumor and innuendos. That's weak rumor and innuendo to me, because I was there. I don't recall there being an issue. The issue was slow down a little bit, fellas. Be a little bit more careful. Your job is to take care of your opponent. They were so motivated to get over, and they were getting a break. They were on WWF television. They wanted to follow the footsteps of their relatives and those that preceded them. So they were overzealous. They're motivated. Goddamn, I'd love to have somebody like that. As somebody you got to continually let a fire into their big ass. They want to go play. So we just had to get them to slow down a little bit and make sure they understood that when you get in the ring, your job is to protect your opponents.
Right.
And simple as that. And they came around to that. So, it's just going to happen with big guys like that.